Every day on this channel, I go through everything Elon said on X in the last 24 hours. And here's how many times Elon posted about each subject today. I'll go through everything he said about each subject before moving on to the next one. And starting with Tesla, Tesla unveiled their new energy product last night, Megablock. They also unveiled version 3 of Megapack. So Elon quoted saying Megapack upgrades. And then he reposted Tesla explaining some of the improvements with these new products. They say that Megablock is our pre-engineered medium voltage block. It has a 25-year life and it can operate in temperatures from minus 40 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. And Megablock is 23% faster to install with up to 40% lower construction costs. And Megablock uses Megapack 3 with proven inverter and fire protection system, a drastically simplified thermal bay with 78% fewer connection, and the latest cell technology supplied from the US, Southeast Asia, and China, and 50 gigawatt hours per year manufacturing capacity. Deliveries start in the second half of 2026, and software and services from Tesla demonstrated across over 36 gigawatt hour global operating fleet. So Omar says Tesla is actually going to start making transformers themselves, and Elon says yes. So you can see the transformer in the middle there. And a major innovation is the use of a new flexible bus bar assembly to connect the transformer directly to the Megapacks. This replaces bulky above ground cabling, reducing installation time by 23% as we saw before, and cutting construction costs as we saw before by up to 40%. And by handling the medium voltage transformer directly, the transformer allows the Mega Block to support rapid scaling. Tesla said they can commission a full 1 gigawatt hour site, which is enough to power 400,000 homes in just 20 business days. And transformers have been a bottleneck in the industry due to global shortages and long lead times, often over 2 years. So Tesla is addressing this by manufacturing their own for the Mega Block at the upcoming Houston Mega Factory starting in late 2026. And in SpaceX news, SpaceX agrees to buy EchoStar spectrum for $17 billion. Nick says this is a massive deal. Part of the agreement, the license for 50 megahertz of S-band spectrum in the United States and global mobile satellite service licenses, will allow SpaceX to develop a second-generation Starlink direct-to-cell constellation capable of delivering full 5G connectivity to unmodified cell phones. 5G connectivity anywhere in the world is actually happening. Insane. And Elon replies to this saying, exciting times ahead. SpaceX says the next-gen direct-to-cell system will deliver unparalleled performance with the world's most advanced satellites, exclusive spectrum, and Starship's unprecedented payload capacity. The SpaceX employee quoted that saying, compared to the Gen 1 direct-to-cell, Gen 2 will be 20 times the throughput to the user and 100 times the overall system throughput. Elon replies saying, yup. And Muka Fish also quoted it saying, I think it's safe to say that Starship is being developed at the limit of what is possible. If SpaceX could spend twice the money they already spend on Starship to 2x its development speed, they would. They just spent $17 billion on a random Monday, enough to launch 170 Starships, and they spent it on Starlink. Money is not the bottleneck of the Starship program. It has to be the laws of physics, human intelligence, and maybe some bureaucracy. And Elon said, yes. And Eric Berger posted a link to an article saying, excellent analysis of the SpaceX Spectrum deal from TMF Associates, who knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. In short, SpaceX appears to be trying to force Apple's hand. And Elon said that pretty much everything is wrong with this article. And free high-speed Wi-Fi is now available on board Air France flights. A stable, fast, and secure experience by Starlink. And Elon reposted this. And Level's CEO says, just to rub it in, remember 2023 Elon firing 80% of Twitter staff, renaming it to X, and everyone predicting it would go to zero? Look where we are now. X ranking number 6 under the free apps top charts, and Elon reposted this. And then Elon said we've open sourced the X algorithm not because we think it's smart, but to show its many flaws. Every week we try to make it better, not always succeeding, but to be as transparent as we are with community notes. Like democracy, it's the worst algorithm, except for all the others. And Daily News posts a breakdown of the updated X algorithm released earlier today. TweepCred system still exists, over 2 years after Elon said he wanted to scrap it. TweepCred is a user reputation and credibility score. Offensive terms get a 80% deboost, but not clear exactly what these are. Spammy behavior, such as replying to accounts that don't follow you, leads to shadow bans. And video views, quotes, and bookmarks are big boosts to an account's reach. Elon said, "This is just a snapshot of the current situation. All the heuristic code will get scrapped in favor of a Grok AI recommendation system." And this ex-employee said, "Next level progress by our X and XAI teams. This is still early to our inevitable success. Proud to be on this journey with the best workforce in the world. We are hiring." You can see Grok Code Fast 1 is still annihilating the competition in tokens, and the US App Store ranking for X continues to rise. And Elon reposted this. And OpenAI is helping make an AI-generated feature-length animated movie that will be released in theaters in 2026. The total production time is 9 months, and the total budget is $30 million. The plan is to debut Critters at Cannes in May. Elon says achievable, but actual budget is more like $30 billion in compute, LMAO. Macrohard replies saying 30-minute episode by Grok, imagine when? And Elon said 4 to 6 months. And he then replies to himself saying, also had a good conversation with the makers of EVE Online. We discussed the possibility of collaborating on an AI game, something that only AI could do. So it's time for politics. A Colorado sheriff admits he was forced to release a very dangerous inmate from jail because of state law that requires criminals found incompetent to stand trial to be released.
Weld County Sheriff Steve Reams is warning his residents of a man he released from jail, not by his own choosing, but because the suspect was ruled incompetent to stand trial.
With that ruling, we're forced to release that individual.
That individual is Debisa Ephraim, a 21-year-old who Reams says is seen in these videos fighting northern Coloradans. The videos, too graphic to be shown in full, show men being knocked unconscious and then continuously punched in the face while lying on the ground.
He's a very dangerous person, and his actions, from what we can tell, were unprovoked.
So why did he walk free without ever seeing a jury? Reams says it's the result of House Bill 1034, signed into law last year by Governor Jared Polis. The law, at its core, said those found incompetent to stand trial should be sent to mental health care instead of incarceration. But that is contingent on the suspect qualifying for that care, which Ephraim did not, Reams says. So Monday morning, he walked free from charges like attempted murder and the cell that he lived in for the last 5 months.
This or the case that happened in Aurora with Solomon Galligan, those both are very giant highlights to the mistake that was made. It needs to be corrected. Someone's going to get hurt, and someone's going to get hurt bad. All I can do at this point is make them aware that this person is out and about, and pray that he doesn't re-enter those criminal actions. But quite honestly, without some legislative changes, I don't know how you address this concern.
Elon said, "This is insane," and he tagged the governor of Colorado. And JD Vance says the big lie the Democrats told about violent crime is that it's systemic, and therefore no one's really responsible. If the system is to blame, then you fund a bunch of nonprofits that don't do anything besides give jobs to underqualified radicals. The reality is that the gross majority of violent crime is committed by a very small group of people, and we should be throwing them in prison. Elon quoted that saying, yes. What it comes down to is this. Do you have more sympathy for those highly likely to commit murder or more for those at risk of being murdered? If the former, you are a disgusting human being, and yet so many on the radical left choose this. The rabbit hole says mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent, and Elon says wise words. And I'm sure you guys have heard of the story of a Ukrainian refugee stabbed to death on a North Carolina train. Probably not on the mainstream media, but you likely saw it on X. We got an extended new video from multiple angles that are time synced showing the stabbing of Irina Zarutska. And if you listen closely, it sounds like the killer says, "I got that white girl." That would make this an anti-white hate crime, so it's no wonder the mainstream media is trying so hard to cover this up. Someone replies saying, "Nobody did a damn thing to help her after the attack." Nick says, nothing at all. I couldn't live with myself if I did that. Mike says the video shows a guy coming over to help, taking off his shirt to try to stop the bleeding, and someone else coming to help too, and Elon said, yeah. And he also quoted that post saying, hate crime. Remember the massive media outrage when this happened? Me neither. Ariel Robinson is a black leftist who talks extensively about white privilege and how evil white people are. She and her husband adopted an innocent white child and beat her to death. The media is silent. Elon responded, privilege. And this is the judge who released the 14-time criminal DeCarlos Brown who murdered the Ukrainian refugee. Taylor says this magistrate judge never passed the bar exam. You can check for yourself. This is such a middle finger to society and justice. Nobody with such a shaky grasp of the law should be handing down rulings on career criminals. Incompetence kills. Elon says it's insane. The killer said, "I got that white girl." And yet there are no hate crime charges, because if hate crime charges were actually filed appropriately, it would show that 90% of hate crime victims are white people. And Elon responds with 2 exclamation marks. And someone posted a collage of similar stories of violence against white people, and Elon also responded with 2 exclamation marks. This cartoon shows DeCarlos Brown getting released and the judge saying everyone deserves a second chance, or a 14th chance, except for the victim. The judge and district attorney who released him are complicit in Irina's murder, and Elon agrees. And Trump posted on Truth Social about the death of the Ukrainian refugee, and Mr. King says it's good that Trump talks about the death of this Ukrainian woman. I would change the messaging a little. Mentally deranged lunatic already feeds into a narrative that he's just crazy, not really responsible. I would say cold-blooded thug or something like that, and Elon reposted this. And a Republican representative, Randy Fine, is calling for judges to face consequences if violent repeat offenders they release go on to commit new crimes. Rothmus says fair. Holding people responsible for the consequences of their actions is common sense. And Elon agrees. And in response to this story, Michael says for decades, Democrats and the ACLU have opposed mandatory psychiatric care for the violently mentally ill. Charlotte shows it's cruel not to mandate care. Trump and Congress should require states to mandate care for the dangerously psychotic. And Elon reposted this. And we learned about this kid in that video earlier. And the Weld County Sheriff in Colorado has issued a warning as he is now back on the streets. Elon replied, "What the f?" So a black man murdered a Ukrainian refugee and proclaimed that he got that white girl. But CNN reports the open racism on sites like X today. It's eye-popping. So Greg says a woman is savagely murdered, and this ghoul directs his ire not on the murderous devil, but social media posts. You couldn't create a more repellent person. It's as if CNN is committing suicide collectively before our eyes. Elon says the blatant anti-white racism on CNN is what's eye-popping. Disgusting. And Jim Halpert says if you stop a violent black man, you make national news. That was in the case of Daniel Penny. If you are a violent black man, you don't make national news. And Elon reposted this. Ben Shapiro says if the 23-year-old killed on the train in Charlotte, North Carolina was black, there would have been riots in the streets. And Elon agrees. And Eric says, holy crap, Stephen Miller just got fired up about the murder of Irina Zarutska.
Pedophiles, illegal alien child abductors, illegal alien murderers back into our streets to kidnap people, to beat them senseless, to stab them and shoot them to death. This is terrorism being waged against the American people. And then you look at that video that chills our very souls out of Charlotte, that beautiful young woman stabbed to death, murdered savagely on a subway, just trying to get home from work, fleeing war, only to run into a Democrat war zone.
He goes on to say it cannot be explained unless you deeply, fundamentally hate America. And Elon reposted it. And the FBI director says the FBI has been investigating the Charlotte train murder from day one. Stay tuned. And Elon responds with an American flag. Kaizen says after the woman was murdered, the mayor issued a statement exclusively defending the homeless and mentally ill. No mention of the killer's 14 arrests and multiple felonies. Our empathy keeps getting used to excuse evil, and it's literally killing us. And Elon reposted this. C3 says, now we know why they didn't want to release the entire video. DeCarlos Brown can be heard saying, I got that white girl. Dems and the media didn't want Americans to see the racial aspect. Think about that. And the New York Times has still not published a single thing about the murder of Ukrainian refugee Irina Zarutska. I think we should all be able to agree that that's extremely weird when millions of people are talking about it, but the New York Times just refuses to report on it. The story is important because it underscores a number of major failures when it comes to criminal justice and mental health policy in America. He was arrested 14 times and continuously was released. How is this not newsworthy? Elon says, wow, we've seen this chart many times on this channel. Most crime is committed by people with over 3 prior arrests. It's a relatively small handful of criminals causing a lot of the problems that we see. Elon says incarcerating a small number of repeat violent criminals would vastly improve public safety. This must be done now. And it's been exposed that a man raped a young 4-year-old and gave her an STD and was released from jail several weeks ago. Elon says this needs to stop. Eric says previously arrested, released, needs to stop being a national headline. Our people are getting raped and murdered, and the judges, district attorneys, and state attorneys who allow this have blood on their hands. And Elon said exactly. Carlos said monthly reminder that black people have killed and raped more white people in Chicago and more Latinos in LA than were ever lynched in the entirety of the South between 1880 and 1970. Elon replied with an eyebrow. Stephen Miller says the Democrat Party's policy of mass releasing monsters onto our streets is a form of political terrorism. The Fox News said that slaying of Irina Zarutska is about race. The Overton window is shifting further and further, and Elon reposted that. And Ronald is a black male who drives hundreds of miles from Indianapolis and stabs Logan, a 5-year-old white boy, to death in his sleep. But the jury finds Ronald not guilty because of insanity. And Elon responds with 2 exclamation marks. And here's a chart from The Rabbit Hole showing interracial violent crime between Asians and blacks. And you can see the majority of the pie chart is black on Asian crime. Elon says, wow. And you can see the source at the bottom. And Nick says, I'll say it again. Democrats are not worried about tyranny in D.C. They're terrified that within 6 months, Trump will have demonstrated that it doesn't take billions in progressive programs to make a city safe. Just enforce the law while protecting the innocent. And Elon says, bullseye. Matt Walsh says, one thing that isn't discussed is how incredibly demoralizing it must be for cops who arrest the same criminals over and over again only to have them dumped back onto the streets. What's the point of risking your life to haul these animals to jail if they will be free tomorrow? And Elon says, absolutely. Politico headline is Ukrainian refugee killed in North Carolina gets dragged into political messaging war. And they put Trump as the main photo with the subline reading, President Trump and MAGA allies are using the killing of Irina Zarutska to attack Democrats. Vittorio says, okay, this is just vile. I thought hatred of journalists had a limit and they still had some human decency. I was delusional. They really are subhuman enough to spin a girl's throat getting slit into a messaging war. Elon says Politico are scumbags. Vince says the average homicide suspect has been arrested 11 times prior to them committing a homicide. That is a problem. That is a problem. We need to keep violent people in jail, and Elon quoted saying 11 times. And here is that congressman officially announcing his letter calling for the removal of Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes, who released the 14-time offender that went on to murder Irina Zarutska in Charlotte. He says this tragedy was preventable. There must be accountability. North Carolinians deserve better. And back in May, Logan Federico was a white 20-year-old female executed in her sleep by a black career criminal. Elon says he has already been arrested 40 times. Repeat violent offenders will eventually kill. Those who fail to prosecute and sentence the offenders are responsible. Gad Saad says a society that burns neighborhoods and calls for the defunding of the police for the guy on the left and largely ignores the public butchering of the woman on the right is one that is drowning in the infinity pool of suicidal empathy. Elon says, as Gad Saad accurately states, the West is dying from suicidal empathy. The 2 options are clear. White people have a simple choice to make. Be conquered, enslaved, raped, and genocided while being called racist, or reclaim our nations and our dignity while being called racist. It's that simple. And Elon says, yes. Matt Walsh says, I want a witch hunt. I want every judge and district attorney who let this monster walk free arrested. I want them dragged in front of cameras in chains. I want their lives destroyed. Elon responds with some fireballs. If someone is too mentally ill to stand trial after murdering someone, instead of getting a lighter sentence or none at all, they should be permanently separated from civilized society as they are not capable of living in it. Elon says either that or innocent people will die. And today, Trump has just signed an executive order requiring an audit of every NGO which relies on federal funding. What's your opinion on this? And Elon says excellent with 3 American flags. Trump also recently changed the Department of Defense to the War Department. Elon says it's much more accurate. San Francisco Transit says we refuse to release crime surveillance videos because it will make people racist. Grum says at worst you are getting people killed in the name of virtue signaling. When you do that, you are actually the racist. And Elon agrees. In a report that transcripts confirm January 6 committee lied about Trump attacking the Secret Service. Gunther says prosecute the whole committee. And Elon said, wow. And David says a humongous 911,000 downward revision of jobs from April 2024 to March 2025. Biden was bragging about jobs numbers during his re-election campaign that simply weren't there. And Too Late Powell once again proved to be living up to his nickname. Cernovich quotes this saying, "All of the books were cooked in 2024. The scam was to help Kamala Harris win, but making the economy look good and also as a backup. Trump could be blamed for a bad economy if he won. All government data is presumed fake. Total overhaul required. Lots of firings needed." Scott Adams quoted that saying all data is fake, and Elon reposted that. Jeffrey Mead said her family had to identify her by her tattoos. An illegal immigrant murdered a black woman and threw her body off a bridge. I haven't seen many people on the left talk about this. Make no mistake, policy matters. Having a border and enforcing it matters. And Elon reposted this. Eric Schmidt says 2 important truths about the Democrats in 2025. They care more about illegal immigrants than hardworking Americans. They have empathy for the criminals, but not the victims. Elon says bullseye. And he posted a Grok analysis asking, why are non-white criminals being recorded as white in the system? It's a practice that often categorizes Hispanics as white, potentially inflating white crime statistics. And I can't show this video due to the music and copyright claims, but the video in the post depicts a woman recounting a distressing experience of being followed by a man on a New York City subway, leading her to take extreme measures to ensure her safety, such as getting off the train past her stop and switching to another train. The response from the other individual in the video shifts the conversation towards a critique of societal diversity. The discussion then introduces the concept of the downside of diversity, which indicates that diverse communities may experience lower trust, more social isolation, and reduced happiness. And heading to the UK, a Rochester man gets 180 days in jail for raping 2 girls under the age of 9. Gunther says, what the f***? 180 days? And Elon reposted this. And as we saw yesterday, like what kind of screwed up society does a lifelong Muslim terrorist who is responsible for the worst attack in the UK with 52 murders to his name and still considered by police as a major risk get to walk out and about in this country as a free man? What are we doing? Elon says madness. And we also saw the Banksy mural at the Royal Courts of Justice yesterday that's exposing the British government for censoring its citizens. Elon says it's accurate, but as we saw yesterday, then they covered it up and censored the art piece. So Peter Sweden said, why is Britain censoring the Banksy art that is criticizing how Britain is censoring people? Amuse responded saying the Streisand effect, which is the unintended consequence of attempts to hide, remove, or censor information, which instead results in the information being more widely publicized. So Elon responds 100. And then Elon brought the scene to life with Grok Imagine. And Elon Musk is rooting for Conor McGregor to become the next president of Ireland. But we saw yesterday that the government in Ireland is trying to block McGregor from running. So we'll see what happens. And there was another heinous sexual assault by migrants in Europe. Elon responded with 2 exclamation marks. And this headline says, German woman given harsher sentence than rapist for calling him a pig. Lauren says, rulings like this make sense once you understand that the law does not exist to protect the citizenry. The law exists to punish those who threaten the interests of the state. And a woman who calls out migrant crime is a much bigger threat to global liberalism than a rapist. Elon says a government against its people is illegitimate. Rupert Lowe of Britain says 1,097 illegals yesterday. Insanity. Andrea says same in Italy. Yesterday about 1,000 people arrived. A left-wing government leads the UK. A right-wing government leads Italy. Same outcome. Maloney promised a naval blockade, deployment of the army, and strong actions to protect citizens, but nothing happened. Disappointed, and Elon reposted it. So, it's a lot of politics, so we got to end with hearing Mike Tyson talk about the secret to a long-lasting marriage.
What's the secret to a long-lasting marriage? I've been married for 5.
Bad memory.
Bad memories?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Just forget things that are bad.
Oh,
yeah,
you
that
just
happen.
gloss
Yeah.
on over it, keep moving?
Yeah, good. Bad memories. Is the way to-
It's just forgetting and moving on, waking up new each day?
Every day, something with our family. We have a special family.
Okay, we're going to play a game now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The full podcast is on the Katie Miller podcast, and Elon reposted it. So that's everything that Elon said today. SpaceX being able to provide 5G access worldwide to any cellular device. That's huge, and I think that opens the door in a tremendous way for Elon to make sense of making a phone. He has a lot of problems with the App Store and how it's kind of become a monopoly. So I do wonder if he's going to create sort of an edge node device that can run AI locally and almost build apps on the fly as you need them. And of course, we saw Megablock and Megapack version 3. Demand for energy is accelerating. So it's good to see another Tesla Megapack factory coming to Houston, Texas. And it is genuinely wild how few stories were written about Irina Zarutska. But that's it for today. If you guys want early access to these videos or you just want to support the channel, you can do so by joining the channel as a member. There's lots of other exclusive content there as well. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.